With the dying of the light, it will be my time to rise. I'll be waiting for you till the stars don't shine. In this misty shrouded land, on a tower I will stand. Eternity is just a drop of time. Shine in this misty shrouded land. On the tower I will stand. Eternity is just a drop of time. Drop of time. Drop of time. All the wars and killings worn down my soul. Shrouded land, on the tower I will stand. Eternity is just a drop of time. Drop of time.
Good afternoon and welcome to Idle Insights. My name is Dylan and I am coming to you live from the surprisingly chilly corner of my living room in beautiful Victoria, BC, Canada. I have a very special guest joining me today. Actually, several special guests. But first, shout out and thank you to our moderator and co-producer Jay. And of course, a huge shout out and thank you to Dungeons & Dragons for hosting us on the official D&D Twitch. It is and will always be an honor to be here. My first guest today, you may no doubt recognize from probably at this point countless Dungeons & Dragons related videos and interviews over the last half decade, where he's basically made his mark as the interviewer of all people D&D. All people D&D. He's also the Dungeon Master for Heroes of the Plains, a weekly TRPG show on the Demiplane Twitch. And I mention that he is also a creative manager here at Codename Entertainment. Please welcome Todd Kenreck to the show. Oh, no, you're still muted.
Wait, I was quiet. I was silenced. That was a lot of pressure. It sounds like my career is very, very important now that you said it in those terms. Like a half decade. I'm okay with 5 years.
Yeah.
But a half decade is a lot of pressure.
Half decade sounds better, right? Isn't that how you're supposed to do it?
No, it sounds great. You're right. Yeah. No, you did it right. I've been doing it wrong for years.
Yeah. And who in the D&D space have you not talked to?
Ooh, that's true. No one. I don't think I've not. Yeah. I mean, I haven't interviewed like the Game of Thrones folks. I know they play D&D, but like in the D&D space itself, yeah, I can't think of anyone. That is a bit odd. I've never really thought of it in
No
terms of that.
obscure artists or writers that you've been like, man, I've really wanted to talk to so and so that painted this book cover in 1984 or something.
There's a bunch of musicians that I have spoken with that I have talked to, but I've not interviewed. That would be interesting for our interviews.
Yeah.
But all super NDA stuff. But like, yeah, and there's some actors and stuff that I talk to on a fairly regular basis that I've never interviewed, and probably wouldn't interview. Not wouldn't, but we're probably not going to do an interview because it's just nice and casual. But
Yeah.
there's it is nice, and I'm very lucky to have so many people let me interview them and meander as I do.
I did notice, like, especially when you talk about something like D&D Live, a lot of famous people who play D&D have showed up at D&D Live. Many of them have not been on camera. In fact, I would say most of them have not been on camera at the event. Just thinking of the first time that when Joe was making the Death Saves debut stuff and first talking about it, a lot of people stopped by to pick up Death Save stuff at that D&D Live, and none of them were on camera for anything.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
But
That's very true. I mean, just everyone really. So many people play D&D, and now it's so comfortable for everyone to just kind of out themselves and be and talk about their D&D experiences, and it's always fun to find out who was a giant D&D nerd or who has recently become a D&D nerd. Like. Director for Chronicles of Riddick, Tuathi.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He plays D&D, and I believe he played D&D. Like, I don't remember. I don't know if I'm remembering this right, but I think him and Vin Diesel were just like, "Hey, you just want to play D&D?" And they like went out and bought like $400 worth of D&D books on a whim. I'm pretty sure that was David Tuathi.
I do remember there was a while there where like the word was out that Vin Diesel plays D&D, and he did like some promotional stuff and all these things. Yeah. And then I remember seeing an interview with Joe. He's like, "Well, I mean, I've never heard of anybody playing with him. I don't know that he actually plays."
I have no inside scoop on any of that.
Yeah, and I was like, interesting.
I will say that, like, he did play on video D&D, and I honestly look at The Last Witcher, The Last Witch Hunter. Which actually is like a guilty pleasure of mine. I have rewatched that probably 20 times. I just love that bar. That bar
I enjoyed it. It was. I wouldn't just say it was good, but I really enjoyed watching it.
Like I've watched Prometheus 100 times. I know it's not a good film.
No,
but I love David in that. I love some of those performances are amazing, and some of the art styles are amazing. I've gone very far afield, so everyone's playing D&D. Is the point? I should never be interviewed because I am the worst person to interview. So that's become clear. So what are we doing today? What are we talking about?
Well, now we're talking about Prometheus.
Yeah.
Prometheus is one of those films where I remember watching it in the theater and really enjoying it. Like being a little disappointed in that it didn't give me what I needed out of an Alien prequel, which is fine. Yeah. But I was watching it, and then I was also like, every time I thought about it, I'm like, man, that film was kind of messy. Like they clearly had a lot of ideas, and like they connected some of the threads together into the movie they made, but there was clearly a lot left on the cutting room floor. Mm-hmm. And then sure enough, when the Blu-ray came out, and they're like, here's our concept art for the replicants that would have been on the ship protecting protecting you're like, wait, what? And you're like, and it was going to be Rutger Hauer's face because they were Roy baddies, and I was like, oh my god, I wish they'd done that.
Yeah, because they were interconnected. They had that they had this prequel video released, which was Wayland. That's the whole reason was the whole purpose of Wayland, having all that makeup on that actor was to age, him to be younger and to do these videos. And
he did his TED Talk video thing.
He did the TED Talk, which was weirdly good. It was like a solid TED Talk. For somebody who is a megalomaniac.
I mean, I've been to a lot of Ted and Ted related things, and there
Yeah.
are some megalomaniacs, so it's okay.
Yeah. It was interesting. Fifield, if you ever get a chance, I disagree for once with practical effects, and this is almost never going to happen because, like, I think the Thing and all these, I love practical effects, but they went with practical effects for Fifield, who was the redhead man who like turns into this weird alien hybrid thing halfway through and starts killing everybody. Uh, and I honestly think the CG was better, and it was such a goblin-like look. I loved it, and I was so sad it wasn't in the movie. It breaks my heart every time. I liked the CG version better that they threw away. But yeah, sorry. So D&D.
Yeah. Somebody in chat says, when we were talking about 5 years and describing 5 years, they're like 1/20th of a century.
Yeah, I know exactly. That's why I was like thinking of different ways to say it. Like I'm like well for of
Yeah.
fancy ways to say things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, shall we? What shall we talk about?
Well, I was going to ask you if there was anybody from D&D that you hadn't interviewed yet, but that's, I mean, you have. So the only other ones you'd have to resurrect. So.
Right now there is some really well. See, luckily I've interviewed like Mackenzie DeArmas is part of the team now, and I was lucky enough to interview her beforehand, and I got to declare Mackenzie as the the valedictorian of D&D because that was such a hard moment of the pandemic was happening, and Mackenzie couldn't actually go to graduation. But luckily to interview Mackenzie, but I haven't interviewed like a lot of the people that have worked on the latest Ravenloft book, and they seem so passionate about Ravenloft. They care so much. I can't wait to eventually interview them. Ray Wanger as well. There are now like a bunch of people who are working on D&D that I've never like physically met due to the pandemic, and but I did get to talk to Tamor, and Tamor is just fantastically creative and wonderful to talk to, and so that was nice as well. But yeah, there are a lot of good eggs I would like to interview soon, as I like to call them.
If you were given unlimited time and budget to set up a panel of speakers at a D&D event, like, I don't know, say three speakers, you're interviewing them and co-moderating the panel. What is the subject of the panel, and who are the speakers?
That's way too hard because there's just too many aspects about D&D that I find fascinating and I care about. I would definitely have someone who is a psychologist, or not a therapist, but a psychologist that can take an in-depth look into like a number of things. I would want someone who's a psychologist, someone who is almost got history in anthropology, and then one of the head D&D designers all on the panel because of a lot of reasons. Number one, people tend to remember the games they play in tabletop more than they remember real life. And there's an aspect to that because of the shared storytelling forces your mind to imagine what is happening, but also interacting with other, living human creatures causes those memories to actually codify even more, which is a very strange element. And where that meets design is interesting. And from an anthropology standpoint, I'm very curious about it. Like, I'm in terms of also psychology, like the fact that you will make a character and you don't know where that character is going, and you kind of don't have control always about whether you're going to like that character or what they do in some weird way. It's not like you're acting, you're taking notes and you're deciding to do a little bit more of this or that. Like sometimes that character just is going to be this thing. And I'm fascinated by all of that stuff. So,
Dr. B is in chat and is like, pick me.
Yeah. I would definitely task Dr. B for sure. Because all the stuff, psychology around Dungeons and Dragons is fascinating to me. Absolutely. But I think like game design is always fascinating. I got to see some of the back end of a number of AAA video games, and it was always funny to me the things that you would I've talked to you about, where like people were complaining this gun isn't powerful enough, and then we just like ramped up the sound effects and the bass, and they're like, okay, that's good now. And we changed none of the mechanics on a gun, and like that was it. We did nothing other than give you a deeper sounding gun.
Yeah.
That happens so often. I wonder, like, I often wonder if is there equivalence of that in D&D, like this perception of like this subclass is funny to see people talk about, like, this subclass is weak and this subclass isn't, and I'm like, well,
I think it depends on whether or not you're trying to win at D&D. Like, are you trying, which is not a bad way to play if that's what you want to do, but some people are like, how much damage per round can I pull off? And they do the math, and they're like, all right, this is an optimal way to build this thing, and like, that's cool, but that's what my enjoyment for. My enjoyment in playing tends to be around, in one shots I'll always make a gimmicky, obnoxious character to try something out. But if I'm playing a campaign, it's just, something that I think would be interesting to explore.
Yeah, like I have a number of characters that I am pretty obsessed with. Like, I haven't played yet that I want to explore in terms of just storytelling, and then this kind of brings me back to like Prometheus and the fact of like David this android who is just trying to like is this very smart creature that is assessing all of humanity's worth is terrifying. Right, and that's interesting to me, like characters that have very weird origins and then have to deal with their surroundings. Like those are the character concepts I'm always interested in exploring. And then where that meets role playing. But you're right, like, if it's a one shot, you tend to play very annoying characters that are hilarious, but would you want to do that for 20 episodes, or would you want other people to do it?
Yeah
Like, I played an owl folk that was like grimdark Batman, and but the worst detective, like he just wasn't really that aware, but like, oh, he's talking like this. Yeah, it was terrible.
That sounds great.
But not for 20 episodes.
Oh man.
I got a lot of characters I'll never get to play, probably because I'm always DMing. But
so why do you think that Charlize Theron's character didn't run to the side when the ship was rolling towards her in Prometheus? I mean, come on.
Panic. That drives me. It never doesn't bother me. You know what I mean? Like, I always expect her not to do it. There's always these films and these stories like you read or you watch or you hear, and you're like, maybe it'll be different this time. And like, she never does it. You know what I honestly think would be amazing, and people should do this in movies, is go back and re-edit them, and not tell anyone, and just to screw with them, kind of like Clue, right? Clue
or like George Lucas did with all of his Star Wars prequels, where he shot so many takes
like
that he like cutting out camera angles and adjusting dialogue and like really editing, like photoshopping people.
Not making it worse, but making a change that is so subtle that it just drives everyone out of their minds. Right,
so a little bit more close to what Bong Joon-ho did with Parasite.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
because he would composite. He's like, so-and-so's performance in this scene was better than this one, but his performance was better in this one. He's like, so I just took those two, and I used those ones in my final cut.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty wild.
Maybe bring back Empire Records, the original soundtrack, and cut that useless scene of him being in Las Vegas. We don't need that. What is that soundtrack? I'm sorry that they don't have the rights to. I'm still looking for the original version of Empire Records. It's very frustrating.
I don't think any. Yeah, I doubt they have the rights to any of that stuff anymore. Yeah,
no,
it'd be super difficult to find.
Yeah, and now we're stuck with that version of Empire Records that no one wanted. The extended fan cut. No one's a fan of that cut.
Man, that is a quintessentially 90s movie to bring up, by the way. Empire Records. Nobody born in the 90s or later has ever heard of that film.
No. It had its moment. It's kind of like Reality Bites, like in that way of like, I can't watch Reality Bites. It's just so 90s. It's so Gen X.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's Winona Ryder and Ethan Hawke and like
Yeah.
Janine Garofalo, and like they're all like in their first, if not among their very first ever roles.
Well, certainly not Winona Ryder.
I don't think it was her first ever role at that point, but I think some of them made their debut there.
It was one of Janine Garofalo's first roles, absolutely. And Ethan Hawke had been, I think, in Dead Poets Society, actually, playing Todd.
Right? Yep.
Yeah, weirdly enough. Winona Ryder's been around for ages, but
Steve Zahn and Ben Stiller were in it. I'm just looking at the cast. Renee Zellweger was in it.
Well, Ben Stiller directed it, so that was one of his first films, and it's actually really strong, and honestly, kind of ahead of its time in the fact that it took reality television to task 2 years after Real World on MTV just started. They went right after him. Like Ben Stiller was like, I can't imagine he liked MTV because he immediately made a movie 2 years later making fun of MTV and reality and reality television. That was such an immediate shift.
I still can't believe that he got Tropic Thunder made.
I can't either, and neither can Robert Downey Jr. So, yeah. I don't. One thing I don't like about that is it does focus too much on Ben Stiller's character because he goes off into the jungle, and I just don't care about that. I kind of lose track of it.
Oh yeah, he was the least interesting one in the film, but I think that was part of it.
Yeah. What are some of the most D&D movies? I wonder, because I know everyone always talks about Golden Girls, but
I mean, the most D&D films to me are films like Guardians of the Galaxy or Thor Ragnarok, where they feel pretty D&D compared to a lot of stuff. Strangely enough, the Dungeons and Dragons film does not in any way feel D&D to me.
Right. The previous ones certainly never do feel like D&D, but everyone does say Guardians of the Galaxy. And I think that's one of my favorite ways to get a party together is when they are trying to kill each other. For some reason, I think that's always funny. It takes longer, but you learn a lot about each other. Mm-hmm. But like, I think Thor Ragnarok is pitch perfect D&D in that sense of like, I actually liked Thor and Thor the Dark World. I know they're not perfect films, but the fact that Ragnarok is making fun of Dark World so hard is D&D. Like, because you think you're going to get Dark World. You're not. You're going to get Ragnarok when you play D&D, okay? Like, you think you're going to get the choir music. You're going to have this great death scene. All of this.
The chains are slowly going to turn you around. It's like, I'm not doing this. It's just doing this itself.
But that's the movie you're going to get with D&D. You're going to get Thor Ragnarok, which is a perfect film.
They've suggested "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" and "Mystery Man" in chat,
totally.
which especially "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou." That was such a awesome film.
I mean, anytime you can do the Odyssey. So
yeah. And then Fury Road. I mean, I don't know that I would describe Fury Road as D&D so much as one of the best ever movies that I love.
Yeah, it's God. It's a shocking film. Shockingly good movie.
Yeah.
To also be kind of not really making movies for a very long time. I think he made Happy Feet.
He made 2 Happy Feet movies. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he's like, maybe I'm just going to knock it out of the park and make a great movie again.
I mean, he was also, wasn't he? He was a cardiac surgeon or something before becoming a film director too, right? Like,
it's
easy to forget that he's actually quite old.
Right? Yeah. I know, and still working with some of the cast of the original film. The villain is like the villain from the very first Mad Max.
Yeah. Hugh Keays-Byrne, I think his name is.
Yeah.
Who was wonderful in both. Yeah.
It does say something to like, you don't have to work often, you just have to work well. Right? Like the fact he could just come back and make that movie is just bizarre to me.
Yeah. I remember walking out of the theater after seeing Fury Road, and I mean, I'd been pretty hyped about it for a long time because I've always loved Mad Max films, and I was like, oh god, it's been so long since The Road Warrior came out. And like Thunderdome was okay, but more funny than good. And
I would say again, Thunderdome is kind of like you want Mad Max, but D&D is Thunderdome.
Yeah, actually. Yeah, and the big Goliath dude has a little person sitting on his shoulders telling him what to do. That is D&D. Yeah. They put you in a cage with weapons hanging off bungee cords.
He's from the Outlands. He's wild. He's crazy. He's the
Yeah.
man with no name.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Big,
Yeah.
big acting.
Yeah.
Tina Turner though. Oh,
Speaking of big acting.
yeah, big acting, but just wonderful. Just like chewing the scenery. Just a delight.
Yeah. I still enjoy the film, but I mean, the ones I rewatch are Road Warrior and Fury Road. And
Yeah.
I remember seeing the first like Comic-Con trailer or whatever trailer they teased for Fury Road first that had they had a cover. Oh god, what was the song cover in it? It was Wild World, but it was covered by one of those like cinematic music companies, which made it more epic, which it was. And I remember watching it and I'm like, oh god, if this film delivers on this, like I will be so happy. And then coming out of the theater and being like exhausted, just be like, all right, I'm definitely going to see that again. I need to make other people see this movie.
Yeah, you just can't look away. That's such a because it is just a chase movie.
Yeah. It takes place over 3 days and 2 nights, I think, technically. About
Yes, and it's very much an editor's movie. Because I was very obsessed. Like anyone who's like cut a lot of music videos, like and anyone who's which you are aware of music is just this rampant pace and then stillness. Muted colors.
Yeah.
You're in the swamp, and
for no reason at all, there are people on stilts.
Yeah,
They never reference or explain.
I actually did the first music video I ever did in film school. I was shooting and everything fell apart and the main actor's dog passed away and it was really sad. And I had a deadline, and so I just took all my paintings and I shot them, and I just did these like 3-frame cuts, which is right at the edge of human perception when it comes to frame rates.
Yeah.
And I did all this stuff, and it's really rapidly cut between paintings and all these digital effects. And then I just do a slow pan after 2 minutes of that during Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. And there are people who like walked out because it drove them. They couldn't slow down. And I got an A+. My professor was like, I've never had that happen to me. I hated it. It made me so tense because you go from cutting nonstop and building and building and building, and then slow pan for like a minute. Just broke me inside, and I was very proud. And that's kind of what Mad Max Fury Road is a little bit. But definitely more an art house antagonistic kind of piece for me in my early days.
Yeah.
So, wow, I haven't thought about that in 30 years or 20 years or whatever. Yeah.
I remember my favorite comment I got from a friend that I convinced to see Fury Road was they texted me and they were halfway through the movie and they're like, I feel like I'm having a 2-hour heart attack. And I was like,
yeah,
good. that sounds like you're watching the film that I saw.
I handle quick cutting very well, and they also did like drop frames in there that does kind of like mess with my brain a little bit. There's a terrible infectious film called Bubba Hotep, which
yeah, I've seen it.
my brother made me watch, and I feel like once you've seen Bubba Hotep, and you've been assaulted by that film, you have to make someone else watch it. It's like vampirism, right? Like there has to be, or it's like The Ring. I think Bubba Hotep is the D&D version of The Ring. It's the one you get. So you see Bubba Hotep, and you will pass away in 7 days if you don't make someone else watch Bubba Hotep.
That does sound about right. Although I'm still kind of annoyed they never made the sequel that they announced in the credits.
Oh yeah, you know what's sad is Megan and I were just talking about Turbo Kid and how much they were planning on making a sequel, and I don't know what happened to that. I love Turbo Kid. I think that is just a brilliantly fun Canadian movie. I think I just love Turbo Kid, and Megan dressed up as Apple from that, and they actually like retweeted Megan because her cosplay was like dead on the character from it. So I really hope they come out with a sequel or get the funding for that one day.
Who knows? Those kinds of films are ones where like if there's a sequel, it's long after.
Yeah, it's hard, but
yeah.
It was such a kind of a darling.
I mean, I'm still waiting for the next Buckaroo Banzai film, so
That is,
That's
you know
been a
what? That
wait.
is still that's still an experience watching that movie.
Yeah.
It's amazing that it got made because even as an adult, it still makes zero sense. It's so
That's what I love so much about it, though.
yeah,
Is
it
the
is definitely
psychobabble is
jazz.
fantastic.
Yeah, it's experimental jazz. It's so bizarre, and Jeff Goldblum is amazing in it, and obviously that's why he was cast in
Yeah.
Thor Ragnarok because he like
Because of Buckaroo Banzai.
because of the radiation. I think they actually did cut. I think Taika Waititi had actually cut sections of Buckaroo Banzai to express what he wanted to do with Thor Ragnarok. I believe that's actually true.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's very Taika, for sure.
And there's just it's funny because Buckaroo Banzai is one of those films where you go back and you look at the cast that's in it, you're like, wow, there's actually a lot of really big actors in it, or like maybe even not really big is the right word, but like a lot of actors who had long successful careers, who you've seen in a million things, are all in it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, like everyone from John Lithgow to, I mean, Peter
Oh,
Weller,
that's
I
right.
guess, is a little
Lithgow's
less
just
recognizable.
out of control in that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just yeah, the Clancy Brown's in it.
Yeah.
Not playing a bad guy. It's before they realized what his voice would be like, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Because again, it's funny because before Harry and the Hendersons, the other guy had to he just became this family friendly type of character and everything, and seeing him play villains is very upsetting. He's back to it, and I don't like it ever.
No?
No, I don't like it. I don't. He is a creepy dude when he's playing a villain. I can't stand watching it.
I love it when actors can do that, though. It
Oh,
makes it
yeah,
even
it's
more
always
upsetting if you've seen them be like really kind and wonderful and amazing in something, and then you see them
Yeah, Robin Williams playing a villain is terrifying.
Yeah. Playing in a villain in a place actually not far from where I am.
Yeah.
Because Port Alberni doubled as Alaska in that movie.
That makes a lot of sense, and yeah, I can see that. God, yeah, what a weird.
Well, you wouldn't want to actually go up to Alaska to film.
No. Oh, you would not. I actually, to the photographers I worked with at NBC were from Alaska, and I don't think they knew each other before that, which was totally random.
That just seems so weird because there are so few populated areas in Alaska. So it's like they didn't know each other. It's like they weren't from one of the 3 towns that are there.
Yeah, right. Like I thought that was rather bizarre. I remember my first day walking into NBC, and they were introducing me to people. And they introduced me to who would later be like my main photographer at like E3 and stuff. And they're like, "Oh, this is John." And he's like, "Hey," I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go to Antarctica for a month." I'm like, "Oh, cool. All right, man." And he did. He went to Antarctica. Mm-hmm. Super fun to shoot there.
Yeah, one of my photographer friends, Camille, has done that a whole bunch of times. Tries to go to Antarctica every year.
Oh,
but she's documenting the decline of the ice caps and has been since like 2000.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. The gear requirements are nightmarish. And batteries, weirdly. This may be the most boring interview, probably for everyone who's watching at home right now.
When it gets super cold, batteries stop working.
Yeah, batteries shut down much faster. You got about half life in your batteries at best. They're fairly useless. So yeah. Hey, I know I can't help but notice, but Avern's not in the formation, which I find kind of I don't want to say passive aggressive. I feel like it's just aggressive.
There you go.
Yeah. Just yeah. What the heck? I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna apologize to Chris Dupuis, who is a creature of nothing but patience. He, much like Avern, had to witness so many iterations of what I felt Avern should be, and he just rolled with it without sending a person to kill me. So I still think
he took out his frustration on us, actually.
Good. That's what I want. That's what I wanted to. Yeah, I wanted to break that Canadian veneer. I do feel like it made sense that Chris, being from America, is the one I tortured. Really, like I felt like that needed to happen. So, but now we have Avern, and Avern's amazing. I always love seeing mirror. There's nothing more egotistical than making more mirror images of yourself and then making yourself big and everyone else small. I don't think you can find anything more arrogant than all of that in one character, ever. So, yeah, very proud of that, how that turned out. I didn't have to do the work, so I can be proud.
I just remember you're like, I've changed Averin again into this. And I remember Chris being like, oh, okay, we'll deal with that. And then like to us, he's like, God damn it. Because it's like every time you get a design lockdown, you're like, he's like, oh, I gotta change it again.
I am the worst. I am.
Well, you were in the meeting when you're like, so Heroes of the Plains is gonna start and it's gonna have these characters, and he's just like, because we're finishing up Alindra and about to launch Orkira, and he's like, I'll get back to you later today.
I am a creature of chaos sometimes when it comes to that stuff. Yeah, it is also terrible when you take a character who you've been playing since you're 8 and you're like, what version of this character am I making? So there is something awful about that. As opposed to like a character you've only played for 2 years, which is like, oh, well, that's who this is. But yeah, poor Chris Dupuy. Big shout out to Chris Dupuy.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting thing to bring up, because your long-standing characters that you've had different campaigns with and played with different groups of friends, or what, like there's so many aspects to them. They're very multifaceted, and like maybe it was a fighter barbarian in one campaign, but you're like, I'm gonna go a little more fighter wizard this time, or whatever you end up doing. And
yeah, like what's funny, I think that the most fun I've ever had with Averin was I was playing with some folks in LA, and everyone basically refused to play a cleric. So Averin was a trickery domain cleric, and that, I don't care what anyone says, that is an incredibly strong cleric subclass, and it works perfectly as a philosophy cleric as well. But the idea that you are telling lies and that's how your magic works, but that spell selection is bonkers, and you can get up to all kinds of chicanery with the trickery domain. Yeah, it was probably my favorite, honestly.
Your potency is only really determined by your creativity with a lot of those.
It really is, and that's probably one of the most creative clerics you can play. And the excuse to not heal is definitely there as well, where you're just like, like of all the clerics who won't heal, it's probably going to be the trickery domain cleric.
Yeah.
But Invoke Duplicity is just nastiness, and then like Laura Bailey has really knocked out the park. I'm not going to say I am flat out jealous of Laura Bailey's playing of a trickery domain cleric, because you kind of feel like, oh no, it's been done.
You've seen a few times where you see the expression on Matt's face where he's like, you don't know what she ruined, but you know that she got to him with what she just did.
He loves it, as any good DM should, but she outwits Matt fairly on the regular, and what's great is Matt's trying not to be outwitted. That nastiness of the dust of deliciousness and the hag is still just
the best thing ever.
It's just so lovely, because she is saying everything. She is telegraphing that she is up to no good, and Matt knows it. And to like drop that, like, because she got that like a year earlier, right? You know, that magical item. So she Laura Bailey just knocks out of the park, and I love how that is role played as well. And there's an ambiguity to where she gets her magic. All of that I love. I think trickery domain clerics are almost their own class, honestly, in that sense. They're utterly unique, kind of like arcane tricksters are kind of completely their own thing from rogues. They're that level of unique, and they're kind of, all right, you got to do better than this, you know, that pressure. Like Eldritch Blast as a cantrip, you know, there's things like that are like always like, okay, well, it has to be this good. Like we have to, like, that's the metric.
Yeah. It's
welcome. Well, comment odd. It's a good code.
Welcome, Todd. You know, it's habit that I break it into fours like that. I don't need to do that.
Oh, you don't?
No, it's habit. Because we always type up our codes as like the format is XXXX hyphen XXXX hyphen XXXX.
Right. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's lovely. It makes it amusing. How's everyone in chat? I'm not watching chat, so I'm a terrible person.
The ones who know what we're talking about in terms of our Critical Role references are agreeing that it won D&D. There were a lot of suggestions about other potential movies that could also be D&D, like the newer Jumanji films.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I didn't see the second one of the newer ones.
It was.
I didn't get that. Yeah, I tried.
Yeah,
I think
it
I
was
tried
fun.
watching it. Yeah.
I watched it. I'm like, it was okay. It just, I think the freshness of the last one, where it was unexpectedly good, kind of taints it. When you watch it again, you're like, oh, it's different ones of them playing each other. Like, really, the interviews around it, where you see Dwayne Johnson and Kevin Hart harping on each other like an old married couple. Those interviews are more entertaining than the film ended up being, at least for me.
Yeah. Now we all agree that Avron's still better than Orkira, though, right? Like everyone in chat.
Ooh. Oh, that's an interesting one.
I'm just saying. Yeah, sure, you can go Orkira in slot 1, which doesn't hurt my feelings at all. You can just start the game with Orkira. It's basically Orkira champions at this point.
Yeah, well, I mean, especially with those initial bugs that allowed players to clear like everything that existed with Orkira. It's like, that's not right. That's not supposed to do that. Yeah, it was really funny.
You gotta stick with Avron though. When the voting starts. When we have that presidential election, Orkira versus Avron, and is that gonna be like an event we do?
Orkira v. Avron? Shit, I can do that right now. You know what I'm gonna do?
Lauren's gonna play the oboe, and people are gonna feel feelings about Orkira. It's just gonna be she's gonna manipulate the audience. It's gonna be the worst. I know how this goes.
No, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go into the dashboard right now and vote.
She's the fresh hotness. She's just gonna win. That's not even
poll.
fair.
New poll.
It's gonna
question.
be Orkira. It shouldn't be Orkira though, if you believe in justice and
which champion should be president?
Kindness. Avron totally should be president, or shouldn't be president, but would end up president. Yeah. Well, I better
2-minute poll. Start
2-minute
poll now. Boom.
Oh, that's very little time. Can you imagine if we had elections like that? You got 2 minutes.
There's a typo. It says which champions instead of which champion, but I'm gonna roll with it.
That. Yeah, I'll go with which champions.
I also added a third. I added Penelope just to see what would happen.
Penelope should win.
She's running away with it, actually.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think you can't fight. You can't fight the cuteness of a tiny halfling with a giant bush cloak.
Yeah,
you cannot mess with that.
I'll just. I mean, it's not making my formation better, but there she is. I'll even.
No matter what, she makes the formation better.
And then where is Briv? Briv's here. So it's 2, 3, 4, 5. No, there's one more. Who am I missing? Don't we have like 6 heroes?
Yeah, Freely. Freely is in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lindra.
Oh, Lindra, that's the one I'm missing. There we go. This is a very, very suboptimal formation now. But it has all the heroes of the plains in it.
Wow, Penelope's just killing it on the vote. This is crap. All right, all of you, I'm going to be in charge of the show very soon, and I will remember everything you're doing. And I'm third. All of what I've done for you over the last year. No, this is when I Thanos snap everyone. This will not go unnoticed in the future.
Yeah.
I am only going to interview people about Minecraft. I don't know what's adversarial.
What is adversarial? I mean, is Minecraft really adversarial to anything?
I mean, it's adversarial in the fact that it's not Idle Champions.
Mm-hmm.
Now chat's challenging me. See, I'll be the villain that you need. Right? Yeah. Everyone needs a Loki. Everyone needs Loki. Loki almost never succeeds. This is what I love about Loki. I love characters that are fundamentally flawed and kind of aware that they're evil and don't succeed. I think not succeeding is always hilarious. Yeah. See, I still heart Avron. That's right.
Yeah, there was the part in the trailer for the new Loki thing where he's talking about how he can be trusted. He's like, I've studied your life in detail. You have literally stabbed people in the back at least 50 times. He's like, but I won't do it again.
I felt called out. The worst. Avern's done a number of bad things. He was an assassin for a very long time, and he killed the king, and that was great. And the paladin got very suspicious. But I had one of those rings that hides your alignment. This is 3rd edition. And so technically the paladin couldn't take action. And so there's this constant tension of like, for like a year.
Yeah.
Of like, I would just kill off people, but he would not know. He didn't know I had tons of poison. But he was so lawful good, he couldn't really like act on it. And it was so funny to play even the assassin. Just play straight evil next to lawful good is always funny, always hilarious.
It's like the NPC you're talking to falls over dead with your dagger in their back. You're like, oh, that's where that is. And you just like pull it out, brush it off, put it away. You're like, I lost it earlier.
That's why I really think you're missing out if you don't have one character in your group that isn't evil for real, because you get this weird tension.
Yeah, I mean,
you can't replace.
One of the reasons why Mark Mears Bailoff was in the Idle Champions Presents party is like, gotta have at least one character who's antagonistic.
And and it's a very hard line to like. You can't have them success. It can't be player versus player in the sense of like they're successful all the time with that antagonism. There needs to be like some kind of Thor and Loki is a very good example of how they congeal very well. But there's a danger where the character who is antagonistic gets beat up on verbally or physically in the group. Yeah. And it's always a dangerous balance of like, knowing what's fun. Like Loki could be a very like in film as well. And the stories, they have to like strike that balance all the time of making him like humane enough, but not being destroyed all the time. And then that's why Hiddleston's amazing as an actor. He can really, I don't know anyone else who can really play that.
No, he nailed it. He manages to, no matter what is going on in it, to still be sympathetic.
It's a very small thing, but in Avengers the movie, that moment where Thor is yelling at him and Loki looks like he regrets it. Like he like looks around and he realizes he there's no point. I've already done this. It's all in Hiddleston's face. I mean, and he makes Thor. Like you can rip on Thor and Thor Dark World all you want, but watch it for Tom Hiddleston because he's
he makes it. And the chemistry between him and Hemsworth in the last one was it made the movie because they teamed up before, but this was infinitely more watchable.
They let Hemsworth be funny, and Hemsworth is like a ridiculously funny actor.
He's too funny. I remember seeing an interview with it was Melissa McCarthy and Kristen Wiig talking about making the Ghostbusters movie with him and how frustrated they were that he was so beautiful and so funny, and they're like, it is making it so much harder for the rest of us.
I can see that. Yeah. He is legit. Like he's amusing. I was just watching Rush, which is funny because Zemo's in that.
Yeah. Daniel Bruhl that was a good movie.
Yeah, it's very good. I haven't finished it yet because I had to go sleep, but it was so well acted. And who else is in that? Natalie Dormer is in that, who was actually the woman who kisses Captain America in the first movie. I remember everything. I have like a slightly
she's the. I don't know if she was like a secretary or whatever, but she was the one waiting outside the Howard Stark's thing in First Avenger.
So I imagine, and this is often how things actually work in Hollywood, is that they saw Zemo in Rush and they're like, oh, we should put him in Civil War. Yeah. Since he's tangentially connected to the Marvel Universe now. Yeah.
And then you won't like him because you won't like this iteration of Zemo, and then we'll bring him back and you will like him.
And you will absolutely like him.
Yeah.
I love that. I love Falcon and Winter Soldier because the thing with Zemo is so bizarre because they make you. Sam's reaction is everyone's reaction. I think you brought this up. Like Sam, like
he's out of line, but he's right. Yeah.
When they mentioned the Trouble Man soundtrack, I'm like, ugh. And even his like comments about like anyone who wants to be powerful, that is supremacy, and I'm like, this is actually really good D&D stuff as well. Like divine soul sorcerers are suspect. Paladins are suspect in my opinion. I find warlocks to be like, at least they're honest.
Unless they are literally not honest, yeah.
Unless they're literally not honest, but like I feel like paladins' motivations are pretty shady at best most of the time.
Nobody buys into those pure altruists. That's not a D&D thing.
This is why I like playing lawful good villains, because they eventually are villains, right? Eventually you're just not lawful good enough. If you look at Guardians of the Galaxy 2, I think it is a pretty good example.
Oh yeah, I don't remember the name of the antagonistic civilization in it, but they all had gold skin and they're too perfect, and they're like, we can't dirty our hands with this thing, and then they screw them over. They're like, we will kill you.
Yeah. I love the video game controls on that were amazing. I like trickster characters. And weirdly enough, I like playing characters that I don't like that character necessarily. On some level, right? Like I disagree with their worldview. So playing villains sometimes.
They remembered in chat, the Sovereign, that was their name.
Oh, of course, the Sovereign.
Yeah,
very very on point.
What do you think the odds are that Falcon and the Winter Soldier ends perfectly tomorrow?
No way. No way. I can't imagine they can. It's so. They've done such a good job, and they're dealing with such complex issues. I don't know how you bring it back to Marvel. I mean, back to a Marvel comic book kind of place is so difficult. I mean, I think it's I have a lot of emotions about that series in a lot of ways. Like John Walker, like it isn't like that. That's very much the character, and there's this horror to that character. But did this character have to be this awful for you to realize that Sam should be Captain America also? And that's something that kind of fundamentally, like, I love everything that's happening in the show. I'm like, it should have been Sam's in the first place. And like, you could have easily had this other character who is pretending to be Captain America that's just not good enough because he's just not Sam. In the way that Winter Soldier isn't Sam Wilson too, right? But you have this arch evil Cap, which I do still love, and it is a good point. But like either way, it should have been Sam being Captain America. You didn't need this arch evil, monstrous, roided out dude to prove that point.
I thought Wyatt Russell has done a good job. He just seems
he's done a great job. I feel sorry for the actor.
He's a little bit typecast in that he's played a dickhead in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, right.
And he's good at it.
It sucks when people confuse. I kind of understand this. Like, people think I am Averin sometimes, but they confuse reality from the actor. It is also super rough. Like that poor guy.
Luckily, he's not on any kind of social media.
Yeah, no, for real. Like my experience, like people who play villains, like Vincent Price did, are like end up being the nicest people on the planet. Because they just kind of adore it and they don't really care about being perceived as the hero. But I wonder how Carly, is it Carly?
Carly Morgenthau's the name of the character, yeah. It was Carl Morgenthau in the comics, that's why.
She's gone too far. Like she's flat out murdered people, and now she seems like she's enjoying herself, and I just don't see I hope there's a peaceful resolution to that storyline.
Yeah.
But
that's what I'm hoping for too. But it's
terrible
since
things.
It's the last episode, I'm expecting it to be Marvel. So
the
episode they spend the most CG on,
Yeah, it is interesting that Sam. Well, I think maybe the person who's not redeemable is current Captain America is not redeemable because she can easily just go to jail. And again, Sam Wilson is someone who deals with people with PTSD and all this other stuff. And Winter Soldier has arguably an unredeemable character in that he was an assassin himself. Certainly not his choice, but like those two characters are going to be the ones who say, maybe we should save them. Though, if you remember, Falcon flat out told Captain America he didn't think Winter Soldier could be saved. So there's
he said he's like, maybe he isn't somebody you save, but somebody that you stop.
Yeah, it's interesting. It really has become Lethal Weapon, the Lethal Weapon series now, in a weird way. But yeah, I'm excited for whatever happens. They're all like knocking out of the park in terms of acting.
Just makes me Lethal Weapon just makes me think of the German bad guy at the end of the second one. He's like diplomatic immunity. He's like it's just been revoked.
It's
Slam.
so bad. and the piercing armor piercing rounds. Ugh.
Yeah.
No. I love that series. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
The fourth one just like went right into preposterous.
Right, there was a fourth one. I forgot about that. That's the one where Jet Li kicks their asses. And then they
Li
shoot him underwater with an AK. Yeah.
And what's great about that is it very much is telling of the changing of the times. So it worked in a weird way. Like Jet Li was like, this is what action is now. New action is going to be the crap of all of you. Like took his gun apart for the first time, all this other stuff that hadn't actually been done a lot in Western cinema. It's a weird moment. And then let's throw Chris Rock in there in a coat that's like 8 sizes too big for him.
Oh man, I think was that the one they introduced Rene Russo in, or did they introduce her in the third one and then she?
No, Rene Russo's introduced, I believe, in the third or second one because they're like
third one, second one, his girlfriend gets killed. First one, he doesn't have a girlfriend. Second one,
first one is a girlfriend. She gets killed. Exactly. Yeah,
the old fridged partner trope, and then in the third one, he meets Renee Zellweger.
Yeah, and then they get married.
Because it's like the construction tycoon who's the bad guy in it.
Of course. Well,
yeah. As one expects, of course.
Yeah, I'm very excited for tomorrow. Thank you for reminding me because I may stay up till midnight just so I can't. I don't know that I think friendships will be lost.
I'm expecting.
If I had a friend who we both know. Who may be named B Dave, who tweeted something. I'm like, why did you do it? Because your brain works and you see someone say a thing and then you just put it together right away and you're like,
yeah.
I love you, B Dave.
Yeah. I did that one time with Game of Thrones, and then afterwards I'm like, ugh, because I'd always tried to reference that I'd watched the episode without spoiling it, and so I'd do something as vague as I could. And one time I was too specific, and I was like, oh, because I made so many friends mad right away. I'm like, I'm sorry, I thought it was vague enough.
It's like that older show IT Crowd, like when someone tells you there's a twist, you've ruined the movie already. Or I had this friend Matt in school, and he would just be like, "Let me just tell you this one thing." I'm like, "I will kill you," because I have to then watch this movie, and then when that thing happens that you told me about, I have to think about you instead. And you know what? While I'm watching like Marvel or Star Wars, I don't want to be thinking about you telling me about this moment.
Yeah.
Don't say anything.
I mean, on that note, because I ended up seeing Rise of the Skywalker, like one of the ultra early showings, like about as early as somebody could conceivably see it without having worked on it. And my review was like, I think it was about this good, and like gave it an abstract number out of 10. And I said that it was better than it was because I'm like, don't think about it too much. Like if you can turn off your brain and enjoy it, it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
And then like people were so mad. They're like, I'm already thinking about how you rated it, and I haven't seen it yet. And I'm like, I didn't tell you what's in the movie. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, also, it's much worse than I said it is, because I was trying not to destroy your enjoyment of it.
I was a terrible movie reviewer because I think I empathized too much with the back end of production, and I could see the mistakes that were made. And
I think that's actually a good thing though, because it can inform your perspective, right?
Yeah, and so I definitely gave it up for good reason, because a weird example of a movie that was deeply troubled was the original Suicide Squad, and they saw that movie and they decided to re-edit it like 3 times. The trailer did well, so they had the people who made the trailer re-edit it.
Yeah,
and I didn't necessarily like the original structure, but it became kind of like this catalyst point of people who were kind of like 20s or younger loved that movie. It did so well. But the press, it became like so fun to tear apart Suicide Squad that I started hating that. And I hated the reviews because I'm like, this is just too easy of a target, and now you're blowing it out of proportion.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, they get
now you're being
kinda set on
ridiculous.
jumping on a bandwagon for clicks, right?
Yeah,
Because there's always when you see a film that is phenomenal and you know it's phenomenal, and then there's always the review that comes out like, actually, I think it's garbage, and it's like you're just trying to get clicks.
And I actually did the opposite, where I was like, actually, Suicide Squad isn't nearly like I'm like, it is not a good, well written article. I will say that. I remember, I think I said something like, the reviews for Suicide Squad are a dumpster fire of hyperbole, or like,
Yeah.
like, and like so many mad at me for it. Because I wasn't actually defending the movie as much as like there's some really great acting moments. There's great special effects. There's like moments with Will Smith's character that are actually completely amazing. On the whole, the movie is deeply flawed on so many levels. But
You could tell it was a turbulent production. It was
a turbulent production, and
they had to have their villains and a lot of their subplots yanked out and replaced during the production too.
To
crazy.
David Harbour's in that, by the way. It's totally random, but
Was he?
Yeah, he's briefly in it. You can barely recognize him.
I don't remember him being in it.
Yeah, he's on the plane. He's on the plane when they're talking. You know how you like to interview a witch on a plane? I think she's on a plane at the time.
Yeah.
But some cool special effects things were really done there. But yeah, I'm curious what the movie would have been without so many cooks, right?
I mean,
who knows?
Warner Brothers seems to have not learned any of the lessons in film that they failed to learn in comics as they started out ahead, and then Marvel gradually took over
Yeah,
their market share. Same thing with film.
Yeah, I'm over the grim dark stuff, honestly. Like, it's just not my thing. It's never been my thing. And I felt like the DC universe, and I'm really glad that Snyder Cut happened, because I feel like even though maybe it wasn't my thing, I think he deserved to have a second shot at making that movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just
I
because
enjoyed watching it, but I wouldn't call it a good movie. You know, I enjoyed watching it, but
I'm also not going to be anti it. Like, I'm just like, you know what? Good for him. You got to make a 4-hour movie that was better than what was served up.
You mean you took the footage off the cutting room floor and you made a superior film? Interesting.
Yeah, right. And also, like, the WB, I feel like just rushed the DC universe way too much. Like, listen, Batman v Superman for me was not supposed to happen for like 10 years.
Yeah.
You have to build up that friendship. Like, it was about the friendship and the conflicting perspectives. I'm like, you just can't go. It's like you want everything. And that's my problem with Batman v Superman, was like, I want the scene where Superman is a husk and gets his life back from the sun. And I also want him to be in the mech suit, and I want him to fight Superman, and then I want Doomsday in it, and then I want like
yeah.
You're like you're like rushing to get everything before anyone else can get it, kind of, in a weird way to me.
I thought it was an incredibly bizarre choice to go from Man of Steel, which was like a dark alternate take on introducing Superman, which I enjoyed the film. That was the first time I'm like, yeah, that's about the right for the collateral damage that a Superman fight would have.
Yeah, really.
But then they jumped from that to trying to do their take on The Dark Knight Returns, and I was like, what the F?
Yeah, you got to earn that.
Yeah.
You really have to earn that. That made me think of something else. Yeah, but I am way more excited for the Suicide Squad with James Gunn, which I got to interview him. I would love to interview him again for D&D, actually, about D&D, but I met him at E3, and I was a huge fan of Slither, which was like amazing.
I always think of the line in that movie where the kid turns to Nathan Fillion and is like, what's a Gina? And he's like, it's a country where Chinese people come from.
I don't know if it was James or Nathan that did that too. Like, in terms of writing, like, it could have been like it could have been improv.
Yeah. Plus, it says a lot about a director that everybody that he works with want to keep working with him, and they all tend to show up in projects of his as much as possible. So.
He's deeply funny and will get you off guard. The interview is like 2 minutes. I think it's still on NBC. But there's like 10 minutes of him like really ribbing me about Slither items in Slither. Like jokes in there. He's like, "Oh yeah, what'd you think about this joke?" And I'm like, "This is getting awkward fast." He is mischievous. I think if anyone in real life is Loki, it's probably James Gunn.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
So,
I can get behind that.
yeah, but he was a delight. He was. I was so excited to interview him. Lollipop Chainsaw. Yeah, that was the game.
I forgot all about that.
Yeah, with the boyfriend's head was a severed head.
Yeah, I remember that it exists now. I totally forgot all about it because it had a
And the soundtrack was done by the Left Rights. Yeah. Oh man.
Well, anyways,
my brain.
Yeah, it is just after 2, and I want to.
No, I'm staying.
I got to talk to Dr. B. Oh yeah.
No. I'm in charge now.
Yeah. I have an overlay for 3 people. Like Dr. B is welcome to join us now, and I could switch to the 3-person overlay instead of the 1 person.
You're dangerous. I should probably have a bio at some point this year. I know we've all been holding it in.
Yeah.
We've all been in a Zoom call this whole time.
Yeah, it feels like that sometimes.
Thank you, everyone in chat, except for all of you who voted for Penelope and or care over me.
Wow, except for 90% of chat.
Yeah, except for 90% of you, all you betray. I see you also, Obo Lauren. I know you didn't vote for Averin. I know how you are.
Well,
no, I love you, chat.
If anybody did vote for Averin, it was probably Kira.
It might have been Lauren out of guilt. Like she's like, wait, I should have been more supportive of Todd. Yeah. Oh, she did vote for Penelope. How dare you?
Fair enough.
All right. Now Dr. B, and I'm going to disappear by the magic of the internets. Thank you, Dylan, for having me on the show.
No worries. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you later.
All right. Am I still on?
Yeah, you do have to leave the call, Todd.
Oh, I have to leave?
Yeah. You do have to leave it in order to be gone.
Am I gone yet?
No.
Let's hang out, everybody.
Yeah. Oh, man. Hello.
That was glorious.
Which part? The part where he's like, wait, am I still here?
Yeah, no, Todd just staring directly into the camera, waiting for everything to cut off. That was beautiful.
Well, it's funny. Normally when I have an interview with somebody, I end the call. I'm like, no, somebody else is joining this call. You have to go.
No. You may show yourself out.
A minor introduction for those who do not know. Dr. B is a director of clinical psychology and the clinical director of Take This, the first mental health nonprofit dedicated to serving the game industry and gaming community. You are here to talk to us about Boxed In, which I know the cliff notes of. I don't know exactly what Boxed In is, so I'm excited to have that explained to me.
Well, the short version is that a fantastic former Disney XD affiliated streamer named Parker Games is doing a charity fundraiser for us. 10 days. I'm already getting called out on not wearing a tie in the chat.
Oh, I mean,
oh no.
Yeah,
I'm already getting called out. I've got like a rack of them over here. If you all want me to pick one, I can, just in an emergency. But no, I'm wearing my College of the Opera Bard hoodie today. But
it looks cozy.
It's great. But anyway, yeah. So Boxed In. Parker is in a box for 10 days, streaming the whole time. He's streaming himself asleep. He's streaming himself talking to his production team. Lots of fantastic guests, and the goal is that he wants to raise $1 million for Take This as mental health mission. Now, before anybody in the chat says he's locking himself in for 10 days to raise money for mental health, isn't that kind of dangerous? It is which is why he's not actually locked in. There's a whole safety plan in place. It's a metaphor for the isolation. It's kind of performance art. It's a metaphor for all of the isolation we've been experiencing over the last year. But yeah, if you go over to parkerboxedin.com or to Take This's website at takethis.org, you can get information on the whole thing, and as well as hosting your own stream if you want to support this, because I don't think Parker's going to make $1 million without your help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I was going to say it's an interesting thing, especially in right now. Like I can't think of a more appropriate time to raise more awareness about mental health. Everything all the time is harder now.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, very much so.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually got to give a huge thank you to Idle Champions for being the sponsor of the whole event. And one of the coolest things, and I'm just like champing at the bit for this, I'm so excited. For everybody who donates to the Parker Boxed In event at $10 or more is going to get a code at the end of it for the Beetle and Grimm heroes in the game dressed in an alternate Psychomancer skin. Mm-hmm. And I'm so excited.
Yeah, that is the only way to get it, folks, just so you know.
I'm just super pumped. It looks so good. It just looks amazing. So
it's very cool.
That's the whole thing. That's the Parker Boxed In event. I've been on a couple of times playing Minecraft with Parker, talking to Parker. We talked this morning about insecurity.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I can only imagine what that conversation was like for somebody who is a Disney affiliated, like there's a lot going on.
Well, it's, we ended up talking a bit about, because you think about it, just about anybody in a creative profession is going to have insecurity, because creativity requires vulnerability, and also creativity requires doing something new. Mm-hmm. And anytime you're doing something new, you don't really have anybody who's done it before saying, you did a good job. I know, because I've done it. Anytime you create something new, you have to learn to come up with your own sense of validation for this. And that's an incredibly challenging thing, especially when not every idea is gold.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I hear that. Yeah.
But one thing I wanted to bring something up from your conversation with Todd. I'm a little shocked that in the context of Dungeons and Dragons adjacent movies, Adventures in Babysitting was not mentioned.
That's a good one. Yeah. I forgot about that movie. That's a classic. Yeah.
Well, you've got The Journey, you've got Encounters, you've got Thor showing up.
Yeah. I haven't seen that movie since I was a kid. I like it. It's so vague. I vaguely remember it.
Well, so one of the really cool things about that, and if getting into the movie trivia aspect, is that Vincent D'onofrio, who was fresh off of his role in Full Metal
it was Elizabeth
Jacket.
Shue. Okay, yeah.
Yep. And Vincent D'onofrio lost like 70 pounds in 6 months to play the version of Thor in that movie, straight off of his role as Private Pyle in Full Metal Jacket. Yeah,
because he gained a bunch of weight for that one.
Yes, he did. And he just, let's talk about actors who commit.
I can't think of a time that I've seen Vincent D'onofrio in anything that he wasn't good.
Yeah, no, he's amazing.
He's just a good actor.
Oh yeah, he's stellar.
Yeah.
So yeah, how you been? I haven't talked to you in a while.
I've been. It's been interesting. I mean, my wife and I were quite fortunate to welcome our first child into the world just before the pandemic started. So I took a month off work and I was at home. And then I was back at work for 2 weeks, and then we went into lockdown, and I haven't been back since. So it's like mixed joy with everything else, because everything to do with my daughter has been wonderful. However, almost nobody in my family's met her. And which like I didn't think would be something that bothered me, and like in some ways it doesn't. But you know, we didn't go to Easter that year, you know, or have an Easter, you know, and a lot of the big events where you would assume that you would see all your extended family and, you know, whichever cousins have decided to have more kids since then and all that kind of stuff. None of that happens. You know, like, so it's been kind of a strangely isolating experience. But we are fortunate in that because the only people that we do see are Catherine's mom and her mother's husband, who helps us take care of her. So we have the support
wonderful.
that we need, which has been incredibly valuable, even more so during all of this. But you know, we were planning on her first birthday being meeting all my family in Hawaii, who I obviously haven't seen since before the pandemic, and which we didn't get to do because her first birthday is in January and the border's still closed. And like, don't know when it's going to open. I mean, theoretically sometime later this year, but like, is it really going to open before but next year? I don't know.
Oh, let's hope. Let's hope.
It's been a time. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, I mean, that's it's been such an interesting experience over the last year in that what we qualify as good news is incredibly relative. And towards the end of last year, somebody started saying to me, whenever I asked, how are you doing? They started qualifying it with, I'm 2020 good. And I just instantly knew all of the complex emotions they were trying to convey in that I am acknowledging the struggles that we're all enduring this year. And in light of all of those struggles, I'm doing relatively okay.
Yeah.
And I started adopting that. How are you doing? I'm doing pandemic okay.
Yeah. And to add to that, I guess like all the struggles are so complex and so different that it's I don't want to say it's an overwhelming thing, although sometimes it is. It's hard to feel like you have any right to complain about anything because the general consensus of all things is that things aren't great. And certainly if you watch news and you follow some issues, like some things I would go so far as to say are real bad. And so you feel like you can't or shouldn't talk like honestly at times about how you're like, I don't feel so great right now because of this. But in like the scheme of things, I'm going to compare it to this abstract concept about that relates to some kind of human inequality or something. It's like, well, compared to that, it's not bad, I guess. But at the end of the day, all these things affect you. So
yeah, you know what? Something I used to back in the days when I worked with people directly. Just for anybody in the chat who doesn't know me, who doesn't watch Tuesdays at 11 a.m., which you should watch Champions of Psychology on this channel. I'm not a practicing psychologist. I am a doctor of clinical psychology, but I do education and policy. But I did at one point work with people. And back in those days when I worked with people, a metaphor I would use is just because somebody else's leg is broken doesn't mean your finger's not broken. And it's a strange thing to hold on to the idea that somebody else is suffering badly and you are also suffering in a different way. It's a very complex, nuanced thing to hold on to that's not minimizing your own challenges, because that becomes a tempting thing. They have it worse, therefore I must not be suffering.
Yep. And I know that in 2009, so I guess this 2021, so it'll be my 12-year anniversary of my spinal injury. And it was a major accident. I'm not going to get into it, but it was bad. I broke vertebrae. Yeah. And it was like very, very close to being really, really bad. And so when people are like, oh, my back hurts, I can't say anything. I have to like internalize. I'm like, that sucks. I know how much that sucks. Like, darn. When really it's like, I live with chronic pain and I can talk all the time about how bad backs can be. But, you know, you just kind of, you just roll with it and you're like, cool. Well, yeah, I mean, do what you can.
But that, even that in of itself becomes a double-edged sword, because on one hand, you're trying to be considerate towards others, but on the other hand, we may end up minimizing our own pain and our own challenges, which may in fact be worse than we want to give ourselves credit for. I don't think of my own back injuries as particularly that bad, but I went to get a massage about 2 years ago, back when I still could. And I started, they started off with this with the question of, where does it hurt and all of that, and I started giving technical terms, and I'm like, this is messed up, this is messed up, this is messed up, this is messed up, and they were looking at me puzzled, like, okay. And they were a friend doing the massage, and when they got to those areas I described, they stopped, paused for a moment, looked down at me and said, "So your back's really messed up." I was like, "I know, I told you." And they said, "Well, everybody tells me that, and I'm trained to be validating, but like, if I lived near you, I would be giving you a massage every week for free just so I felt better." And so it becomes this, somebody in the chat said the suffering Olympics, and it becomes this competition to either outsuffer or eliminate our own suffering, when neither one of those is really a good idea. So yeah, rant over.
Yeah. And it's just interesting because, like, I mean, there was a good stretch of the pandemic where my wife and I would watch the news every night, be like, because we felt like we needed the update. And then, eventually you're just like, you're happy to hear about anything other than the pandemic on the news. Oh, God, although yes. Last year when you started hearing about things other than the pandemic, it was also bad. So it's kind of, and so you find, like, okay, like, now we just try to pay attention to, like, local information, like, okay, what's relevant to us directly, because if we try to absorb the entirety of all what's going on in the news, and like Canada's response to COVID and stuff like that, in our case, it's just too much all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you the strategy I take for that, which helps me quite a bit, and that's first of all, if I'm not excited by it, it's probably good news. If it's just information that seems boring and complicated, that's the news channel I want to watch, because that's actual information. And two, I can get most of what I need to get in about 15-20 minutes. Anything after that is just punditry that's there to shock me and so forth. So I'll just pick something that seems boring and informational for 15-20 minutes, and then that's it. That's all I need for the day. I'm done. I just think back to, like, being in post-secondary and, like, studying media literacy, and being, ever since then, like, being adamant. I was like, okay, I need to be on top of the news. I need to pay attention to it. Whereas lately I'm like, I'm just gonna check out the CBC website and see what the numbers for the health authority I'm in look like today. And it's like, oh, things are looking up. Okay. And I'm like, how's the rest of British Columbia doing? It's like, oh, not great. But it's tough to gather all that. It's improving. I mean, now that the U.S.'s vaccinations are pretty well underway, we're getting closer and closer to us getting more accelerated vaccination programs in Canada, because we were thoroughly reliant on the supply from the U.S. and from Europe for it. And there was a big stretch there where both the U.S. and Europe were like, no. Which was too bad, because that was when we were doing our best. It was like, oh, if we got our vaccines then, we wouldn't have had a third wave at all. But it's I mean, it is what it is. There's more coming in. People are getting vaccinated now. My age group is, I think, technically eligible to start signing up for stuff now, but not that I'll get it. But so we're getting there. Yeah, well, we just, in Washington State, we just opened it up on April 15th. So 7 days ago, to everybody 16 or older, and so now everybody's scrambling to get theirs. Yeah, we had a morning meeting actually recently where Todd was like, Megan and I got vaccinated this weekend, and the rest of us in the meeting are like, because we're all waiting. No, we're not malicious. We're just like, we're happy for you. We're just waiting for ours. But no, hey, vaccination jealousy is a thing. Oh yeah. Vaccination my timelines are full of it. Thing. Oh yeah. My friends who are a few years older, like, oh, my vaccine symptoms suck. It's like, oh, you got vaccinated. Yeah. Oh, I can't. I one of the actually one of the things I'm holding on to look forward to is as soon as like I'm vaccinated and enough people are vaccinated, I want to hop a boat. I want to come visit you all. I want to head over to BC where y'all are.
Yeah, yeah. It's a I remember trying to convince people to take the float plane from downtown. Well, you could take it from a couple different places, but float planing over is awesome. I highly recommend it if you are comfortable with float planes. If you're not, then don't. But
never been in one.
I mean, it's shocking how tiny the plane is. Then you get in it, and then you take off on and you fly low enough that you can see everything, which is the best part, assuming the weather's kind of good, and then you land right in downtown Victoria. But the Clipper also goes from downtown Seattle to downtown Victoria as well, and
I love the Clipper. Love the Clipper.
Yeah, and it's a nice trip. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's great. Just kick back, chill out for 3 hours, and especially this time of year, and then just get that nice view of the Straits.
Of course, I've done a few trips on it that were not nice trips, where the water was really choppy because the wind hits the strait at the right angle, and it's nightmare the whole way there and back.
Oh yeah, get those 20-foot swells. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That was absolutely ridiculous. Oh man. Total aside, one thing I wanted to mention to everybody is that as part of the Parker Buxton fundraiser that we're doing, Take This is doing a special Buxton After Dark stream this Saturday night, where we're going to be, after Parker goes to bed at I think 10 p.m. Central Time, so 8 p.m. Pacific, we are going to be doing just a variety of really silly multiplayer games that Take This staff, and we are going to be penalizing each other with foods that we really are scared to try.
Oh yeah.
Like, I have, as much as I love all sorts of foods, durian fruit has been one I have been scared to try for a long time, and I think they're gonna make me eat durian.
Is it a taste, smell, or texture? Like, what is it that?
From what I hear, all of the above.
Yeah.
I have heard it compared to really stinky French cheese.
A fruit. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's got the seeds have kind of a custardy consistency that has the smell and taste of like a really strong Lemberger.
I mean, that's not making me hungry to hear about, I gotta say.
Right. Yeah, so we're gonna do stuff like that, like foods that we absolutely hate or are scared to try. And you know what? We will take suggestions from our audience. If
Ghost
you go
peppers.
and
Just give people ghost peppers.
Oh,
it
just
always
straight
messes
ghost
people
peppers?
up. They're horrible. Oh yeah.
Just straight ghost peppers? I don't know.
One of the codename co-founders, David, who's just like is a hobbyist, what do you call it? I'm forgetting the phrasing. Like indoor horticulture. But he just likes building things and working on things, and so he grows ghost peppers and stuff every year. And he brought some Carolina Reapers into the office once.
Oh no!
And he like shaved up, like, who wants some? And like almost everybody in the office had some, and the entire afternoon was just people going no, and like taking drinks of water. And I remember our art director Adam didn't do it, and he just like the first time somebody was like he's like, oh god, I'm gonna hear this the rest of the day. Which sure enough, it was hot. Nope. I remember it being hot. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we might do something like that, but we're also going to try and do some silly incentives for people who donate. And I would just say, if you're all in the chat, if you all have some suggestions for us to try various foods or silly things to do when we lose, or people donate at a certain level, make sure to follow Take This at TakeThis.org, and throw those suggestions our way. We're gonna try and have some fun with it and make it real silly. I think we may do gang beasts.
Gang beasts?
Yeah, it's an incredibly silly game where you're like Gumby creatures beating each other up and throwing throwing each other into like environmental hazards.
Ah.
It's a really fun game. We've talked about golf with your friends. What are some other ones we talked about? Ultimate Chicken Horse.
Huh.
Yeah, just real silly games.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds fun. And multiplayer is always fun, but messing with your friends is even better. And the only thing better than messing with your friends is messing with your coworkers. So,
oh, we're getting the Bean Boozled challenge from the chat. Oh, we're adding that one. Those are we're also talking about warheads, doing the sour
what is
warheads.
Bean Boozled?
Oh, okay. So, Jelly Bellies, I think, originally had the license for Birdie Bot's Every Flavored Beans.
Yep.
And they tweaked it into these Bean Boozled flavors where they have two pretty much identical colors of every bean, but one of them might be, let's say, green apple, and the other one is grass.
Huh.
One of them is cocoa, the other one is mud. And it's anybody's guess which one you get. And they are really accurate depictions of some of those flavors. Don't ask me how I know
Imagine being the person working at the company and like, we're going to test out these ones. We got to get this mud flavor just right. And you have people like, well, this tastes like the mud in like this part of the world, but I want it to taste like the mud here. You know, like, how do they work on that? Oh, man.
I don't know, but they get it right. They get it. It's so accurate to some of the flavors I know from experience. That another dyad in there is like earwax or buttered popcorn. Both
of those sound awful.
And I just mentioned that to the Take This team in our chat, and our operations director is just like, no. Meanwhile, our research director is like, yes.
Yeah. When we do our Extra Life streams each year, except for this past year, obviously, because we had new restrictions come down the afternoon before, like, we were going to go live the next day, and we ended up having to cancel everything that we had planned. But a few years ago, some of my coworkers decided to do their own version of like hot spicy wings, like hot ones, on it. And like I was no longer there. Like I'd gone home to go to bed, but it's like first thing the next day I came in to work, I'm like looked up on, like, because we record everything obviously, I'm like looking up, I'm like, where's the segment where they ate the hot wings? I want to see the pain in their faces as they're trying to get through these. And it was super entertaining. Yeah. I don't know what it is about watching people that you like in pain. I don't know.
I don't know, but I don't know. It's funny when I've talked to people about like my behavior in real life versus my behavior in a D&D game, because I say, you know, lawful good IRL, chaotic good fantasies.
Yeah.
It allows me to live out my impish fantasies with these relatively harmless pranks, especially if I'm involved.
Yep.
Yeah. We're gonna have a lot of fun with that. I hope, and I hope everybody comes to join us on Saturday night at 8 p.m. Pacific. It's gonna be so much fun.
I would be curious to know where did the idea for Boxed In come from? Like, how did this project get started?
Well, actually, Parker's team came to us. They had this idea, and they had this wonderful event production team, Extreme Events, who's been working with Parker's team the whole time and with us. And they came to us with this idea and a whole lot of enthusiasm and a whole lot of ideas. And we, being who we are, we're like, well, hold on, let's scale some of that back, because staying up for 72 hours is not healthy. And one of the things we needed to be extremely careful about something like this is so back when I was training during my doctoral training, I actually worked at a prison twice. I liked it so much the first time. I liked working with the guys at that prison that I went back for my final internship, and I thought I was going to end up likely having a career working in corrections. Because there was a lot of good work that could be done in that setting, and so I have a lot of experience seeing people who are struggling with extreme who are in situations of extreme isolation, and I know how unhealthy it is. And so we had a lot of suggestions and things to say about how to do this safely. So when we put this plan in place, he's getting a medical check-in from a physician that he trusts every day. And that physician has the authority to, pull him out of the box at any time for any health-related reason, mental or physical.
Yeah.
And so does his production team. And if Barker's just getting too distressed, he can pull himself out of there, because this isn't a Daredevil challenge, and we wanted to make sure it's not that, and still make it exciting, which we think it is. It's been really cool. But yeah, they came to us.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I was just kind of curious how that idea came together. I'm like, and it was just when I was reading about it, I was kind of like, I wonder how they came up with that. It was just kind of a different thing. I'm like, plus, a lot of us feel like we've been in boxes for a while now.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's part of me that wants to get real snarky with it. Or real like motivational speaker with that of like, we're all in a box inside our own hearts. What we're going to do is we're going to actualize the self to release ourselves from that box. Dylan, are you ready to release yourself from the box within?
No.
Chat, are you ready to release yourself from the box inside us all?
The box is comfortable. I've been in it for so long that it's well furnished now,
The comfort zone is an underrated place.
I am more worried about how people are going to be when we start interacting with each other again.
It's going to be weird, I think. I'm certainly going to feel strange about it, because there is through social media, there are a lot of people I'm friends with who I've seen make some really questionable decisions during the last year, and some very dangerous decisions in the last year, and I'm going to have a hard time trusting them going forward. If they ever invite me out to something, I'm going to have an extremely difficult time trusting them because of some of the choices that they make. And I think we've all experienced that. We all probably have people in our lives who have made some incredibly questionable or even dangerous decisions in the last year.
Absolutely. And, especially looking at like where I am in BC, we handled the first wave extraordinarily well. And the second wave pretty darn well as well. But people stopped really trying to handle it well after that. And now that things are not great, you can't help but think like, some of these friends are not worried about it you feel like they're not taking it seriously or whatever it is.
Yep.
And I can't think about things the way that they're thinking about them, because I can only think as me. In my mind, I'm like, I like my parents. I want them around as long as I can have them. So it's a very easy choice for me to do everything I can to limit exposure and make sure that, we're not spreading a virus. But it is shocking the number of people who are like, I'm going to go do this trip anyways, and I'm going to go do this, and then I'm going to do this. And it's like, I get that you guys are unhappy that the border's closed and travel is limited, but I mean, you do realize that travel is the whole reason we have a pandemic, right? Like, it started in one place and then it got everywhere.
Well, I mean, even taking travel out of it, I'm shocked at the number of people who, like, I've been invited to keggers in the last year, and I'm like, are you kidding? Really?
Yeah.
Like, how? Why? Or people holding regular game nights in their houses, and why? How?
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah, I haven't been to a friend's house since, maybe June or July, I think.
Yeah.
And it was just because we had a window there where after our first wave, we dipped down to like there was nothing going on in BC at all. And so it was like, it was open enough that we were comfortable isolating for a couple weeks while our friends isolated for a couple weeks. And then we went to their place and had a barbecue. But haven't done anything like that since, because, none of us wants to make anybody else sick. In fact, I had friends who were sick with non-COVID related things in that initial 6-week window after my daughter was born. And so they're like, I'm sick. We're sorry. We're not going to come. We'll come after and we'll meet her. And then they never did. They never got to. which I'm thankful for. But also, I wanted my friends who wanted to meet my kid to meet them.
Right.
And now they're going to, by the time they will meet her, she'll be talking and she glares the same way I glare at people, which is really going to, they are going to think it's really funny. I think it's wild. Like looking into the eyes of a child who's just like mad at you and like glaring. And I'm like, oh God, that's the same way I do it. This isn't fair. It's pretty funny though.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm, honestly, I'm just trying to think of things to keep looking forward to. And
Yep.
one of the things that I'm just really hoping is that enough people are going to be vaccinated that my 40th birthday is this summer. And
congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mine will be next summer.
I'm double epic now. But no, my hope is that enough people are going to be vaccinated that I can like card them at the door and have I don't know if you watch Letterkenny, but I want a super soft 40th birthday party. I want a pony. I want pink boas. I already have a tiara ready. In fact, you know what? I'm putting on the tiara now. All right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. It sparkles.
Yeah. I do appreciate that they make Derry have a super soft birthday. Yeah.
I really need to adjust the white balance on this camera. God, I'm getting washed out. But that's okay. The tiara just sparkles more.
I still think it's weird when I hear Americans say that they've seen Letterkenny because it's so Canadian. And I think Hulu has it in the US.
Mm-hmm.
But it still just seems weird to me that anybody outside Canada would watch it.
You know what? You and I have actually talked about this before. Because despite the fact that it is incredibly Canadian in terms of the language it uses and the slang terms, there are a lot of dynamics to it that those of us
small town anywhere. Yeah.
Exactly. Like I went to a really rural high school and extremely rural high school. I had 81 people in my graduating class.
Yeah, that's small.
And every single group in that, I was like, I know you. I can name who you were.
Yeah, yeah, and honestly, like I watched it all because it tends to come out around Christmas, I think. At least. And so my wife and I usually watch it. Like we spend our New Year's Eve or our New Year's Day watching it, and just kind of getting through whatever season it is. And not a lot of the humor in it is very distinctly like either about Ontario or Quebec or Canada. Mm-hmm. Some of it is, but for the most part of it, they do a very good job of keeping the writing and everything very universal. And like they've made their own sort of, a lot of the terminology in it is unique to the show.
Yeah, but the dynamics are just so universal to anybody who's spent time in a small town. It's ridiculous to see that. And so as such, my hope is that enough people are vaccinated that I can have my super soft 40th birthday party.
That sounds amazing. Yeah. If we're borders open and we could come and join in, it'd be fun.
Oh gosh, let's hope so.
Yeah.
I'm hoping for May 21st. I think that's the next date for border opening potentially.
I don't know. It's been an interesting thing because I remember, pretty early into the pandemic last year, seeing a lot of the conversation around different governors in states that are along the U.S.-Canada border, trying to petition like all these different reasons why people should be able to cross the border and get exceptions, all this stuff. But a huge amount of those reasons are like people want to check their vacation homes on the Great Lakes. Like that's all it is what they want. And it's like, can rich people come check their houses? And people are like, I mean, not only no, but like they also wouldn't leave, like because this was a time when the U.S. policy was wildly out of control for the pandemic, and Canada was looking good, and we're just like, no, you cannot cross the border. But I can't imagine. I can't picture it opening on May 21st. I think it'll be this fall once because we are behind on vaccinations here pretty badly. So it'll be once we start getting 60-70% of our population vaccinated that we probably look at opening it up. Yeah. I mean, while there are people here who are vaccine averse, it doesn't seem to be as politicized as it is in the U.S. So I think more people here will get vaccinated in the end.
Well, being autistic, I have feelings about the whole vaccines are evil concept, especially knowing where the science is.
I mean, how many times have you had polio or whooping cough? I mean,
none that I can recall. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of not dying of something that's preventative. So vaccines work for me. We made sure to get my daughter vaccinated as she was eligible.
I once had I think this was TwitchCon a couple years ago. I had an Uber driver who thought conspiracy theories were just good small talk. And
not alarming.
Yeah, not at all alarming. And the funny thing was that I had actually just purely coincidentally read some research, some studies on the psychology of conspiracy theories just a couple weeks earlier.
Oh.
And there I was just going, let me explain how many people that particular conspiracy theory would take. And I know I can't trust 5 people to keep a secret. So, and then when he got into autism and vaccines, I was like, okay, bud, you're in my house now. I am a doctor of psychology. I am autistic. What do you want to know? And at the end, I just kept dropping fact and fact and fact because I'm an expert in this area.
Yeah. You work on policy on these things.
I'm just like, okay, bud, ask an expert. And he was like, well, you have your opinion and I have mine. I'm like, oh, come on.
That's not how facts work.
This is you. I went to school for I owe a house on my education and you just want to say your opinion is the same as mine? Come on, man.
Yeah, it reminds me of any show where they would bring somebody on to talk about climate change and then they would bring on a climate denier as well. It's like, no. Well, if you're going to do that, then the real way to do it would be to bring on 99 experts on climate change and 1 denier. That would be the way to do it that accurately represents the scientific perspective on the issue. You don't give equal time to a perspective that is not founded in any kind of scientific research, facts, peer-reviewed, anything, etc.
Yeah, well, I mean, and especially since everything he brought up, I was able to be like, no, let me counter that with history and fact, and here's how that happened, and here's this, and here's that. No, by the way, the thing that you think is infectious hasn't been, is a problem, hasn't been used in most U.S. vaccines since 2003. What you got? Mm-hmm. And that's when he just went to, well, you have your opinion, I have mine. I'm like, by the way, I got a fantastic discount on that ride plus some credit.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I had this moment also at TwitchCon actually. Although I don't know if we went to the same one. I went to the one in 2017 in Long Beach.
I was at that one too.
Okay, I mean, I don't remember.
Wait, that was San Jose.
No, we were in Long Beach.
Oh yeah, no, San Jose was 2018.
Yeah, we didn't go to that one.
Long
we only
Beach
went to
was 2017. Yeah.
Yeah. But Clive and I went.
That was hot.
Yeah, and the egress logistics were a little slow, but I remember after the conference was done, Clive and I we had to take 2 Ubers back to back really closely to do something, and we got the same driver for both, and we had a conversation that at the end when we were pulling into the hotel, the driver's like, man, I don't want this conversation to end. You guys are really interesting, whatever we were talking about, and we're like, yeah, well, and then we go, and then we had to we were going to the hotel to pick stuff up. We had already checked out. We were just picking up our stuff to head out. And so we call another Uber and he loops back in. He's like, yes, he was just like, got you again. We can finish what we were discussing. Yeah, it was really funny.
Do you ever have that experience? Because I know your job is really unique. My job is really unique. And it when you're at conventions and the Lyft drivers, the Uber drivers, the cab drivers, whoever is your ride, when they ask, well, what do you do? And you say what you do. And they're like, really?
I get a lot of people. They're like, you stream on the D&D Twitch about video games and D&D. I'm like, yeah, that's a lot of what my job is. And they're like, that's a job?
It is a billion-dollar industry. Welcome
Yeah.
to the 21st century.
Yeah. You might even call it the biggest industry. It dwarfs film now. Like, it's huge.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm not even sure if streaming. Thinking about it, I'm not sure if streaming revenue is included in video games.
I doubt it.
Video.
Yeah.
Yeah, that puts it even.
But it would be
higher
relevant.
'cause- Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. I mean, well, even when when I was going to school for communication stuff, and I mean, granted, all the equipment I used was analog for the most part, so that says enough. But streaming was like a very abstract concept at that time. There was like Twitch didn't really exist like it does now.
No.
It's,
It's come such a long way.
And even just over the last year with the pandemic, the number of people tuning into streaming services and playing games in online communities is just radically increased.
Just boom. It has blown up. It's a strange thing to tell people that I'm streaming to, because so many of them are way younger than me at this point. And when they ask me like, what was your first video game system, and I tell them that, just to give you an idea, one of my most prized possessions is a graded factory sealed copy of NES Pinball from 1985.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, 9.0. That was a treasure. I was actually at my mom's house couple years ago, and she was cleaning some stuff out, and she buys gifts for people, and just in case she needs gifts, and apparently she bought that for me in like 1986, and not knowing I already had a copy, and she just kept it in a protected place. And so when I came across this thing still in the factory plastic, it was like light came down and you could hear the angels going.
Oh, it's funny because when I think about my attachment to gaming and the stuff that I prize the most, like I think about, because I played World of Warcraft seriously at a high level for a long time, and I look at that character, which I still have the account. I haven't been subscribed in who knows how long. I tend to check it out every once in a while, but I think about like the achievements and the titles that I have that haven't been accessible in the game for a decade or longer. And I'm like, these are the things that make me feel cool. Because I foolishly sold all my older consoles. Not thinking, like, because I was kind of like of the mind, like, I'm a poor teenager, like I'm going to sell this one so I can buy this next one. And
yeah,
and then later on being like, what do you mean you can't find Ogre Battle for Super Nintendo anymore? I didn't know it was like hardly printed.
Yeah,
whoops.
That's a shame.
No,
I
enjoyed the game, but I was like, in retrospect, it would have been kind of nice to have that still.
Well, it makes me really glad that I didn't get rid of a lot of my stuff, because I've still got my Nintendo, my Super Nintendo, my Genesis, and pretty much all of the games I always had. There were a couple I loaned out that disappeared over the years, but still got my NES Advantage. It still works, and that thing is just fun to play on.
Honestly, the only one I missed is my first NES, because it worked. I almost never had to, like, where you had to like eject it over and over, or like
you
blow it out.
You didn't have the pin issues?
Almost never. Yeah, it just worked, and I didn't. I kind of, in retrospect, now realize that it was a really good NES.
That is like the holy grail of NESs right there.
Emulators just don't really get that part right.
The frustration of
yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. I also kind of miss having like one of those gold Legend of Zelda cartridges,
Still got
those
mine.
were cool. Yeah.
Still got
But it's
my
not factory
copies.
sealed, is it? Oh, it'd be worth so much money. You could buy a house with it if it was still factory sealed.
I looked at those recently. They're about $10,000.
Yeah. I saw I was watching a thing where somebody had purchased because whenever they would do video game tournaments back in the day, like late 80s, early 90s for Nintendo, if they did a tournament, they would put everything. They would make a tournament cartridge that had all the games on it.
The NES World
and then the person who won would get whatever, and like those are worth a lot of money.
Yes, they are.
Because there's 10 or whatever.
Yes. Yep. The NES World Championship cartridges are ludicrously collectible.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty
there's
neat.
there's a couple. If I ever get to the point where I can afford to do this, there's a couple that I really want to get into my collection just for the sake of nostalgia purposes. One of them being a factory sealed copy of Final Fantasy 1.
Yeah,
Because I've still got my copy, it's just not factory sealed. I would love to get a factory sealed copy of Zelda 1 in the gold cartridge, and as well as Mario 3.
Oh, that was such a fun game.
I know. So many good memories of Mario 3 and Final Fantasy 2 in the United States. And 3 in the United States, but 6 in Japan.
3 in the United States was the one I put the most time into, for sure.
Ditto.
Yeah.
I both our research director, Dr. Rachel Cohort, and I are in agreement. It is the best Final Fantasy game.
Yeah, I'll go with that. Every character in it has an awesome narrative. And I mean, you don't have to play through all of them, I guess, for the second part of it, but also halfway through you fail and the world gets destroyed.
Right. I mean,
like
what is that?
The third string villain makes a grab for power and succeeds, and like just everything goes to shit. It was great.
I mean, we all have some complaints about that character and the way it, in terms of mental health.
Oh, for
portrayal.
Sure. Yeah,
I'm just like, why is he evil? Because mental health. I'm like, come on, man. Mental illness.
Sure. Yeah. Although, I mean, some of the, I wouldn't describe the earlier Final Fantasy games as particularly sensitive around different kinds of issues, and some of the translations are pretty offensive at times. So.
Yeah. But things have gotten better over the years, and that was one of those that just Kefka remains one of those things that we're just like, ooh, yeah, we can do better than that.
Yeah. At the same time, I still remember acutely, first of all, the music in that game.
That was opera alone.
The best score that they did for any of the Final Fantasy games. Not that other ones were bad, but just the best one. The most incredible, unique works created for a single one.
Yep.
Across tons of different genres of music, and they're all awesome. And to this day, they still occasionally make at this, video game soundtrack award thing where an orchestra's doing it, we're going to do this song from Final Fantasy VI or this song. It doesn't matter which one it is; it's always incredible. But even just thinking back to when my cartridge's battery in it died, so it could no longer save because they had the physical battery in them.
That's right.
I remember the first time I turned on my Nintendo and my Super Nintendo again, and it just it goes right to the intro because it thinks you're starting a game because it can't save, and so it's their their Magitech suits walking in the snow.
Yep.
And on the terrain, and I was just the slowly building epic music in the background. I was like. It blew me away when that game came out.
Well, I mean, those Mode 7 graphics that they had going on there, that was
the best stuff. Yeah. Nothing makes us sound like old gamers talking about Mode 7. Which was only ever used on Super Nintendo pretty much.
But it was groundbreaking at the time. I mean, this is the same as people going back and talking about Citizen Kane and analyzing it. This is where so much narrative and film technique came from, that you got to appreciate your roots. You go back, and if you're a musician, you listen to the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, or even going further back than that, Bill Haley and the Comets, or Glenn Miller, or Louis Armstrong, or you appreciate where everything came from.
And I know that a lot of my friends who have kids now, their aspiration was that they would make their kids play through all their old consoles, eventually catching up to the modern stuff. I'm like, you'll never succeed at that because you have the new ones. The new ones will be there, and they'll be like, that one looks better. I'm going to play that one, Dad. And you will be like, ugh. And you'll let them do it. Because they're never going to have the same experience of seeing Pong for the first time that you did, or the very first time they ever played a Mario Brothers game, when the idea of interacting with the television was radical at that time.
And also I truly believe this, that if you train people up on certain Nintendo games, especially ones that were just rushed to release because they were ridiculously unbalanced in their gameplay, modern games are going to be a lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, Donkey Kong is a merciless, difficult game.
I was thinking like Mylon's Secret Castle. That you couldn't shoot your bubble anything but like at a 22-degree angle. So if something was right in front of you, you had to wait till it was super close. I mean, that game was, and you couldn't save, you couldn't continue. That was just ridiculously difficult. No. No.
The furthest game back that I remember being just pure frustration was Ninja Gaiden.
Oh yeah. I just tried replaying that. It was as difficult as I recalled.
Yeah, still difficult.
Mega Man was another one. The Battletoads Speed Tunnel.
Battletoads was great. What a good game.
Oh yeah, no.
The Mega Mans, I actually finished all those, but Battletoads was ruthless.
Did you finish the first Mega Man?
The first one? Yeah, that's the one where there's like 6 bad guys in it instead of 8, I think, in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that Mega Man 1.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I haven't finished it since the 80s, but so I'm sure that you could boot up any Mega Man now and I would die right away.
Yeah, they're really hard.
Yeah, I remember the hard part being in the second one, Quickman's. It was a Quickman's level, the one with the lasers going across. So you had to perfectly move through the environment, or you were dead. That was it. Like you had to have pre-memorized the way to go. Yeah, and
Quickman was a brutal level. That was a really brutal level. You needed to have the freeze power to get past it.
Yeah, those were great games.
Anyway,
it's just about 3, so we should probably wrap things up. Boxed In runs until
April 29th. And again, please go to parkerboxedin.com or check out takethis.org for some details. And if you want to run your own charity stream in support of Take This's mental health mission, because by the way, we are a much smaller staff than people think, and we have a lot of ideas that that we would love to do, but we do not have the bandwidth for, given we have 2 full-time employees, 1 half-time employee, and a few contractors. So we are a real small team with a lot of big ideas, and we would love to make more free mental health educational materials, especially for content creators, available. We've got a video series envisioned that we need funding to put together.
And it's a good cause. Just straight up is one of the reasons that we continue to work with Take This and we continue to support Take This. It's a good cause.
We heart you all in a school appropriate way.
Anyways, this has been our show for Thursday, April 22nd, 2021, which means that my second to last Idle Insights episode is coming to a close. Handing the interview reins over to Todd, who has already talked to everybody, and everybody knows Todd. It's going to be good. So thank you for joining us today, for participating in the Idle Champions, in the Dungeons and Dragons, and in the Take This spaces, the communities. You guys are all awesome. This show exists because of a lot of amazing folks behind the scenes, including our co-producer and moderator, Jay, our partners at Dungeons and Dragons, our partners at Take This, our staff like Todd, and finally, this episode didn't end up being all about Todd, but luckily, the dapper Dr. B joined us.
I was like, bow tie.
Just like the bow tie, which I have no idea how to tie, so I just did a random hand kind of thing here. And take care, everybody. We will catch you tomorrow for Griddle Champions. And apologies, but the hints that people are asking about right now, they were in that ending right there. Anyways, I'll catch you later. Cheers.
Bye, everybody.